I think, events, when we organize events, we want to transfer emotions and feelings. So event platforms, they need to work on that.
Hello there, all you meeting planners and future meeting planners. I'm Joe Floyd, and thank you for joining us. This week we have another great episode with Sina Bunte, who is formerly of ICCA, so the International Congress and Convention Association. She planned last year their first hybrid multi-hub event, which is an excellent example of what may be happening in all of our futures. So with that, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, so thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I'm sure it's much later where you are than where I am. So I want to start off with a simple question. Can you tell me in 5 career moves or less how you kind of got to where you are today?
Yeah, so welcome from Germany. I'm I'm right now in Germany and it's late afternoon here, but always a pleasure to connect with you. So basically, I worked for the past couple of years for ICCA, and I was always interested in virtual events. I did the DES course by PCMA already in 2018, way before people actually thought about going hybrid and going virtual. But I always had it in mind. I always had the great idea of transforming events digital to like get a wider reach to enable people to join. And so then last year in March, I had to do it. So we immediately started with like organizing webinars for our members and transferring some of our in-person events to virtual. And then in November, where usually the ICCA Congress takes place, it was supposed to take place in Taiwan, and it still did. But in addition to the in-person event, we made it hybrid and we added 8 hubs around the world. So wherever people could meet locally, they had the chance to. And if it wasn't possible, then they could meet online. So in the end, we had, I think, around 1,500 attendees. We had, what I said, 8 different hubs around the world, like in Spain and Saudi Arabia, South Africa, in Asia. We had a couple of more, and of course the delegates in Kaohsiung in Taiwan, where we were all supposed to go. And it was an amazing experience, like a lot of work. We all learned a lot, but in the end, we really saw the benefits of going hybrid. We had way more speakers. We had like more attendees. We had more associations joining because our attendees usually are the event suppliers, so like Congress centers, convention bureaus, and associations. And this time, like we could really see a rise in the numbers of attendees, and that was really great.
Nice. So maybe one follow up on that. When you say that you had more presenters, were those presenters all in person at the main kind of hub, or were some of them virtual, or what was the interplay there?
Yeah, good question. So we had them located in the hubs. So whenever they could travel to like Spain or South Africa, etc., they were there on stage. Because in addition to, so basically, I need to explain the program a little bit because it was quite like complex. So every day for 4 hours, we went live from Taiwan to everywhere around the world. So everybody around the world saw the same program for 4 hours. And then we had speakers from Taiwan, but also speakers joining virtually from the US, from anywhere in the world where they couldn't travel at the moment. And then in the afternoons or in the mornings, depending where you were in the world, the local hubs had their own program as well. So, and this was again live streamed everywhere around the world. So I think for like 3 days, wherever you were, you had a lot to watch. So yeah, we had speakers joining in virtually, but also in person in Taiwan or in the hubs, depending where they were and where it was possible.
Interesting. So, based on that experience, where would you say that there's the most potential for the technology or technologies, as we're all finding, to kind of improve?
Yeah. I think, last year some planners were just worried of not canceling their event. But this year, now that we are settling in into the new norm a little bit, I think attendees really expect much more from the event production, from the event. So getting away from a simple Zoom, but really focusing on increased quality of the production of the event itself. And maybe think about like more the TV production. So what we did last year is we had a studio in the UK where we had the main moderator, and the main moderator was then connecting to the virtual audience. And I think this really increased the quality of the overall event, because now we watch a lot of Netflix, we watch TV. We also have this feeling of a TV studio, and content is the like video content is the primary way to now like show the content. So you have to have a focus on that, and how do you show that? How do you transfer this to the audience? So that's, I think, my first point, that we see the better quality in the event production. And also maybe a tip for people that can't or like don't have the budget to have event professional event production company supporting the event. Look at like streaming tools, for example, like StreamYard, who can support you. So it already makes your event look way more professional if you have some lower thirds or like different backgrounds, etc. So look into that. They're not really expensive, and they also like help you like increase the quality of the overall event production and the streams. Additionally, what I think is really interesting, and where I see like way more potential, is virtual reality. So, for example, like last year, I had the pleasure to attend a conference in VR. It was a finance conference, so not really my industry, but for me, it was so interesting to like put on the Oculus VR glasses and then really immerse myself in this world of like the VR world. So there, I could watch the sessions, I could visit exhibition booth, but what I couldn't do is speak to other attendees. So I think there also the organizer said that's what they're working on for this year, where you have your own avatar and you can meet people in this virtual world and talk to them. So again, I'm really curious if they're able to do this year. This is where I see a lot of potential, because just imagine you're a gamer or you play PlayStation and all these computer games. The gaming industry had these virtual worlds for years already, where you put yourself in this world and you were playing with other people or fighting or whatever. So let's take this from this industry for our events industry, and try to build this virtual world for our attendees as well. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and I'm really curious where this like evolves. Um, Also, in addition, I think, events, when we organize events, we want to transfer emotions and feelings. So event platforms, they need to work on that. So how do we engage the virtual audience more than just having a poll or a Q&A? So how do you transfer the emotions and feelings to the virtual audience? It's very difficult. So I'm, again, curious, and there's so much potential out there for that. For networking, include some gamifications, and increase the quality of virtual exhibitions, because we saw that there is still a lot to improve. Um, and if we speak about hybrid, and that's what I did last year, that was one of my big questions. How do we connect the online audience and the on-site audience? So what we've done is like we had our platform live for 6 weeks already before the actual event in November. So before the event, people could connect online already. And then when people went on site, they I think they basically like they didn't want to connect with the people online, because they were really happy to like meet again and be there in person after like almost a year meeting people. So I think like we thought about it, like how do we enable them to talk and network, but we decided like no, let's leave them both separately. So the on-site people talk with the on-site people, the online people, they can chat on the platform. We used a very nice networking tool called Wonder, so where you can go and you can have video calls with other people. But the on-site people, like I think they didn't want to talk to the online people, and that was fine. But this worked for our event and this worked for our industry, but maybe for other industries and for other target groups, it's differently. So I'm really curious there how the tech improves in that sense of how to engage the both audiences.
Yeah, that's a really interesting problem, particularly from the U.S. perspective, in that there may be tax implications for leaving your digital event open for an extended period of time where you're highlighting sponsors. So the exhibition, the part that we were missing the most, um, if you leave it open for an extended amount of time, there might be tax implications for the nonprofit, the organization, association that's putting on the event. So it gets really tricky really quickly. I do like your suggestion of using VR for the exhibitions.
Hmm.
I hadn't thought of that. I have spent more time thinking about VR in the context of how do you make that equitable and accessible. As we all know, last year it was difficult just to get a new webcam, right?
Yeah.
So, I was renting out professional grade gear to people who didn't have a webcam. And so that's, I think, the Oculus, whatever the other equivalents are, I think that would be a really game changing thing from the aspect of how you interact with exhibitors if you can actually speak to them. And I agree that was a really great failure in the events that I've worked with last year. You could either see things, touch things, you could download some information as this avatar or whatever, but you couldn't speak with people, or you became the avatar somehow in a Zoom-esque meeting, and so now you're just a cartoon head instead of a real head. So I don't know what the shift was there.
Yeah, so especially what you say in the exhibition area, but also for promoting destinations, because I'm from the industry where we work with suppliers, so like DMCs, convention centers, etc. So I would like to see them make more use of this technology because right now people cannot travel to your destination or visit your venue. So make more use of these VR glasses. And for example, if we think about the association industry, you could you could send one of those glasses, the headsets, to them, and then maybe have like a subscription or something. So like every month you get to see a different venue or a different destination. So I think there is so much potential there to show your venues and destinations right now while people cannot travel. So I was a bit disappointed that the industry didn't pick it up last year fast. But as you say, it has to be more accessible, maybe cheaper. And it was still so new to a lot of people, the whole VR world. So, but let's see how people get more used to it and then it gets more normal, let's say.
Yeah, well, and I think the tools on the other end of that are coming along rapidly too, right? Just last year, I guess, the iPad is now capable, or at least the Pro version, of 3D mapping your room or your space or whatever. And so once we get to the point where we can easily dump that into some platform or whatever, that would be game changing to just highlight spaces. So yeah, I totally agree
Yeah.
with that. So on that kind of hopping on to the other half of your last kind of response, we talk about hybrid and in person and how you connect the two. Are there times when you really think it's better to not kind of force that, to keep them separate?
Hmm. Yeah, I think first planners need to realize that if you organize a hybrid event, you basically organize two events because you really have to map out the attendee journey in two ways. One is for on-site people that are going physically to your event, and the other one is purely for your online attendees. So, and then we try to combine them. We try to show the emotions that people see on site and try to bring them to the online attendees. And that is very difficult, but we try and we try to create this FOMO, this fear of missing out. Why am I not in this venue? Why do I not speak with the people and feel the event? So there are certain aspects I think that you can separate and certain aspects that you can't. So if we look at the elements, for example, obviously if you watch a session that can be easily transferred to online, talking about exhibitions again. So in my opinion, like if you have an exhibition as part of your event, rather keep it separately because I think, or like like right now, like, from the point of technology that is available right now, it's quite difficult to have an exhibition live running there with people going from stand to stand, and have the online attendees there as well. So rather have that separate. So have an exhibition online and have one in person. Um, so that's one element, I think. Or for example, if you have like social evenings, like cocktail functions, they are always like part of your in-person event. But what do you do for the online attendees at the same time? So for ICCA, for the ICCA Congress last year, what I did is that I still showcased where the dinners are taking place, because again, this is something for the destinations to showcase to the online audience as well. So we had a little like live stream to the dinner venues, and had like local chefs showing like local cuisine, like local food of the destination. Because imagine we are going somewhere, we're going to a conference, which is abroad, it's in a different country. You always like to get to know the culture and the food, right? So what we tried is like to still show some of the Taiwanese kitchen and cuisine to the online audience. But it was very, very short, like 5 minutes, because otherwise you
Oh,
lose the
wow.
online attendees. They don't want to see people eating, right? So for
True.
them online, do something differently. Or another aspect that I would not have at the same time is, for example, if you have a workshop as part of your event. So imagine the attendees on site in the convention center, they have to build something, like, right? It's part of a session that you have to build something, or on offsite meeting. Maybe it's not in the convention center. So you go somewhere and you have to physically build something. Yeah, if you watch it online, unless you have this thing at home as well, it's not the same. So again, rather do that separately. Like for example, as an example, like the other week, I helped organizing the European Flower Grower Conference. So really, really exciting project for me, and it was purely online. So, but we were thinking, okay, for the next years when we can meet again, how can we do this event hybrid? So how can we still like have it online for the people that this year enjoyed it so much, not traveling and then just sitting in front of their computer? But for those that want to meet, how can we like facilitate that? And like, for example, for this industry of like farmers and flower growers, they want to go to a farm, they want to go to a field, they want to like feel the flowers, they want to maybe harvest something, etc. They want to look at it. So this part of the program then just, rather keep it separate. You cannot duplicate that to online. But if we look at what elements could be only for the digital attendees, for example, like look at like interviews with speakers. Like if you look at the Olympic Games, which I think is one of the perfect example for a hybrid event, right? You have the athletes on site there, you have the audience in the stadium, and then you have all of us watching at home. But the benefit for us watching at home is that we get expert interviews. We get close to the athletes, what you couldn't get in the stadium. Like there, you cannot listen to them having a deep interview. So you could have these elements as part of your hybrid event, where you offer this benefit to the online attendees of like really like deep interviews with experts, and maybe offer the online audience to ask a question as well, right? So it's all about engagement. So I think these would be the elements that you rather should have strictly separate.
That's interesting. I remember, so I went through DES as well. I remember there was discussion that the first hybrid event that PCMA did, the on-site attendees were upset that they didn't get access to all of the the live streams, and so I
Right.
think I think that's really a tricky that's a tricky thing. Like, do you exclude them from those interviews? I do see that it adds value for the online attendees, but do you have to opt in for experience A versus experience B, and maybe those actually generate two different audiences? Yeah, that is really fascinating to think through.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I mean, if you have these interviews, obviously if you are on site, you can put your phone out and you can watch it as well. but nobody does it because you're on site and you're talking to people, or you can make them accessible after the event. But if you go physically to an event and you leave the venue, and you go come home again, would you then tune in again to watch the interviews? Probably not, right? But I think what PCMA did well in the past couple of years, because also like I attended their convening leaders events whenever I could from home, because I couldn't travel to the US or I was not allowed, etc. So I love these interviews. I
Yeah.
really, really like them, like pre-session or after the sessions. And that was one of the benefits for the online attendees. So yeah, again, like very important is that you meet expectations, I think, for both audiences. For the people that go on site to your event, you meet the expectations, and the online attendees. And if you explain that in advance, I think you can organize a great event. So
Yeah, and I
yeah.
think you maybe touched on something else too, the interaction, right? So the interactivity. I think a lot of events, including some of the sessions, maybe even at convening leaders this year, were pre-records, right? And so I don't know um, if I'm just overthinking it or what, but even if those presenters are in a chat window or whatever, or they pop on the screen in a different outfit, and I kind of breaks that fourth wall for me. Um, I feel like that is a very different context versus me being able to interact with you in real time, even if we're not sitting side by side. So I do think there's value there. That's a really I hope more events go to we're only doing this as one take lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it has advantages and disadvantages, right? So I understand why some sessions were pre-recorded. I can understand why most sessions were live. Like at the ICCA Congress, we did, I would say 90% sessions were live, because that's what I agree with, right? That's when you can interact with the speakers, and you can maybe change his direction a little bit of the talk, for example, if you ask the right questions, and you're not just watching a show like you would do on YouTube or Netflix. So there are sides for there are two sides for it. um but yeah, I mean, think of your objectives, and see what's best for your audience, and think about time zones, all these things, and then uh you define what's best for your event, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. So do you think there are times when digital can actually beat in person?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at last year, for example, there were a couple of events that were usually taking place in person, and then they transfer to digital. And we know about the benefits of having a digital event. Like you have a wider reach, you can personalize your event a little bit, you can guide the people. Not only speaking about sustainability, right? Nobody's flying around the world. Um, but I think we have, like, it's like, I'm not sure which of those events that transferred to digital last year that were usually in person will remain digital, because for an event, you are transferring emotions and feelings, etc. Digitally, it's very difficult. So in one aspect where you could do it, I think, is when you talk about education and just transferring knowledge and content. Where your reach is important, you want to reach as many people as possible. So there you could think about purely doing this event digitally. It's not important, you don't have a specific target group. It's, like, you don't have to transfer feelings or emotions. It's purely educational and content. So there, I think it could work. And also, what I saw last year with a lot of like webinars or educational events, is the benefit is that you can connect with a speaker right away or right afterwards, like on LinkedIn, etc. If you go to an event, that's, you sometimes maybe do that a week later, but it's already a week later. If you watch the session live online, you can immediately message the person and you can immediately continue the conversation. So I think this like connection to speakers and experts is really beneficial, and also to create your own community, right? So like during community leaders happened a few weeks ago, for example, I created a Slack channel to connect with other event professionals because I didn't want to sit here alone in front of my computer, but I wanted to like interact with the other people and like exchange ideas, and network, right? That's why we go to an event. So I think this community building aspect is very beneficial as well for digital events. And this is where I see you could have digital only events, let's say. Um, but if you look at the aspects of, again, like transferring emotions and feelings, etc., um, it's difficult, like going to a concert, etc. Once it's possible, I believe they will, like, you will go there in person again. You will not watch the musician online. Like last year you did it because there was no other option. But once it's possible again, I think all those events that transfer something, like you create, you're together somewhere, you have emotions, those won't stay digital. They might have a digital component, right? Like what we also do with the hybrid events, but not purely digital. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people on my end of these events have kind of had this reaction that we're just trying to reproduce what was in person instead of
Mhm.
saying, here's the moment in time where you could actually rethink and create a whole new event, right? And I've had that conversation with a number of clients with varying degrees of success. But I do think shedding the old name or saying you're going to go do that when you're in person again and creating this new identity may be part of what builds those new communities. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's just when you name it what you have already done in person, people have an expectation and they have an understanding in their mind, and they can't let that go. So yeah,
Yeah. No, no, I agree. I completely agree. But I always say, like, never never try to duplicate what you've done in person. It is virtual. It's a different event. Like the organizers need different skills. You need more like technical knowledge, like it's a lot relies now on the technology. You're not thinking about, oh, what about the FMB, or the stage design, etc. Now it's about the platform, it's about the stream. So yeah, you need to rethink and learn maybe also different skills to do that. And yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's so true. So I guess is there anything that I haven't asked you?
I don't think so, but I think, just in general, for everybody who's still considering organizing virtual events, or who've done it and you want to improve them from last year, for example, think about your target audience. It's super important. Um, don't have like a 3D world or whatever if it's not for your target audience. Think of, like, who is it, like age, demographics, how tech savvy are they? And even if they are, still you need to explain everything like step by step, like really send them really good instructions. And also, again, meet their expectations. Do they have to download something in advance, or what do they need to do to access your event? And with all events, define your objectives first, and then think about the medium. How do you organize the event? Like, which platform do you use, etc.? Are we doing it hybrid or not, etc.? So objectives first, and then the next step in the planning.
So true. Yeah, I'm working through an event design with a client this coming weekend, and I think my suspicion is they're going to totally shift what they thought they were going to do. uh, yeah,
It's great, right? So yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So I guess one last question for you would be, do you have three books or recommendations for people to learn more?
Yeah, so not really books, but if we speak about digital, um, I would say to learn more. So the one thing is, like, join a Slack group. So there are plenty of Slack groups for event professionals out there. So there is EventProfs Unite, for example, where I'm part of, and there are many, many great peers there, and they are happy to help. So if you have a question there, just post it there, you get an answer. Another one would be to follow other event professionals and event technicians on Twitter, because that's where we share articles, or retweet something, and that's where you can learn a lot. And the last point is what I discovered the other week is Clubhouse. So Clubhouse is an audio event, not event app, an audio app. Only works for iOS right now. So, but probably in the future it also works for other phones. And there are different rooms. So a bit like what you have at an event. So you join a room and you listen to people, but you can also participate. So if you have anything to say there, you just raise your hand. The speaker puts you up on stage, and you can contribute. And like, I really find those rooms and those conversations that are going on, they're very beneficial. There are plenty about event technology. So if you're interested in this topic, like, go to Clubhouse and search for event tech. You will find plenty of rooms and sessions there. You can ask your question, or you can give your comment and share your experience. I found those rooms there really, really valuable, like right now. And it also, it's not recorded, and you don't have to show your face. It's just about like listening to others. And yeah, I find this is a really cool app in my view. I really enjoy being there, talking to others, and sometimes, just listening.
Yeah, yeah. I used to think podcasts were the new radio. I listen to them when I'm biking around, and
Yeah.
people are
And
convincing
now,
me
yeah,
Clubhouse.
exactly. Like, I love podcasts. So, also podcast is another source for knowledge and inspiration. Check out, there are plenty again for event technology topics. But now with Clubhouse, you're not just passively listening, but you can actively join the conversation. And that's what I like about it. Like, they ask you to go on stage, or you can, raise your hand and do it voluntarily, and contribute something. And it's not just listening. So check it out if you can.
Yeah, yeah, true. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Remember, these go live every Thursday on YouTube. So if you subscribe to the page, you'll get a notification. And if you are interested in a Zoom checklist, the one that I use for everything down to events like these, so that I don't forget things like hitting record, check that out. There's a description or link in the description below, and we'll see you next week.